Hello and welcome back to the Holistic Hatha Yoga podcast. I'm your host Kelsey, and I'm super happy to be here with you guys this week. Today we have our beautiful guest, Dina Berrin, and I am so excited to share her with you. She is a tarot reader and numerologist, and she is in New York, and she has been practicing tarot for over 20 years, I believe is what she had said. And the breadth of knowledge that she had was just amazing. And I learned a ton from her. So I hope you guys also learn a lot. Especially tune in on the numerology stuff. I've known a little bit about numerology and have delved into it here and there. I'm more into, I guess my roots is more into like astrology and tarot and Eastern philosophy and stuff. So I've recently, in the recent years, kind of delved into, or started to dip my toes, I suppose, into numerology. And I find it very fascinating. And of course, once you start finding that all these different modalities are so, like, fascinating and just seem to be spot on, you're kind of curious as to like, okay, is this just my mind making it so that everything works, or what is it? Or is it, that all these things separately work? Like, how is this actually happening? And in this conversation, it's very fun because Dina explains how they're actually connected, how they play off of each other, and how it's really just using the same exact energies and same exact magic in tarot, in astrology, in numerology, and how they all play together and they're not actually separate things. So she explains that in a really beautiful way and explains the connection even further. So tune in for that. Also, learning the personal year number was incredible for me. So she does that for me in this conversation that you're about to listen to, and it's super fun. So I highly, highly resonate with what she was saying for me. And I was just like, oh my goodness, I really wish I would have spoken with you in January and you could have given me a heads up on this whole personal year stuff. And essentially it's like using your birth date and such to figure out which personal year you are in, and it kind of gives you an overview of what the theme is for the year for you. And so, wow, was mine spot on. So that was really eye-opening as well. So yeah, I will, enough with me, and let's get on with our interview for today, and I hope you guys enjoy it. All right, I'll see you at the end.
Welcome to the podcast. And for any of the listeners, this is Dina Berrin. And yeah, you do like awakening work and using tarot and numerology to kind of get into your intuition and move from a more aligned place. And I absolutely love that. So yeah, tell me how you got to like doing what you were doing and like what you find super powerful, I guess, about like the tools of tarot and numerology, I guess.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you. Thank you, Kelsey, so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. And I feel like we share a lot of common ground in our work and like the way we approach it. So I would say, how did I get into it? I feel as though I've never not been into it, if that answers your question. And I think that a lot of people that do this work just have always been drawn to it. However, I was introduced to it through my grandmother. Like my grandmother, I feel like there's a lot of different ways to do divination. And my grandmother was very into astrology. When I was growing up, she used to talk about people as if they were their astrological sign. Like when I was born, I am born on the Taurus Aries cusp, and which means that I have some energy going behind me. And I remember my grandmother said to my mom, oh dear, run for the hills. This kid's going to give you a run for your money. And I did. But but I felt like that was a big thing. So my grandmother kind of started me out on it. And I was a little bit shyer when I was younger. So I would say that instead of being like in the mix, I was very often like, I was never the first person picked for a sports team. Like I was kind of like more of like an observer than I was like in like the main, I was, you know, a little on the shy side, which I've gotten over. But I did a lot of observing when I was younger. I did a lot of noticing people that would, sometimes when you were one-on-one with them, they would act a certain way. And then when they were in a big group, you'd see them act completely differently. And I'm like, that's interesting. You know, like, so who is the real version of them? And maybe neither one of them kind of thing. But I started becoming very intuitive when I was younger, like, you know, would notice, you know, just kind of people's mannerisms and just notice like how maybe they would push their way to the front or they would hang to the back or, you know, just kind of like noticing a lot. And then when I came to New York, I found my first intro to tarot class. So that was kind of like the beginning of my formal education. Prior to that, it was a lot of learning from family and just, you know, intuitively what I knew. And that kind of started everything because in tarot, there are numbers. So there's your numerology. In tarot, the cards all have astrological associations. So there's your connection to astrology. And there are colors in the cards and there are symbols in the cards. And there's just like, you need to kind of intuitively see what the cards are telling you as they connect with each other. So I feel as though my grandmother started it out for me, and then I reconnected it to when I was in like my 20s, and I basically have never looked back since. I consider myself a lifelong student, but also I'm a teacher, I'm a reader, I'm a speaker, I'm a writer. I like to do a lot of different things because there are just so many different ways to use all of these tools and to find value in them.
Right. That's amazing. That
Thank
is
you.
absolutely amazing. I love that. And I love that you say, yeah, it started like from that young age of just like knowing, kind of just tapping into that intuition already.
Yeah, and I'm just a curious person. Like I feel as though if you want to learn about anything, and that could be like if you want to be a better cook, if you want to be a better writer, whatever it is you want to do, it doesn't have to be like if you want to be a better yoga student or whatever it is. You just have to commit to it and get curious about it. So it's not like, oh, I suck at this, or, you know, it's kind of like, okay, well, my balance might have been a little bit off then, but maybe if I move my foot position and I straighten my posture a little bit, like I feel as though if you're just curious and try to play with it, to work with it. So I feel as though all of this work is not necessarily work, so to speak. It's play if you allow yourself to approach it that way.
Right. Yeah. 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 I absolutely love that. And I love using tarot myself. I have a couple decks. But I got my first deck, kind of like you said, I got my first deck when I was really young and I didn't really know anything about it, but I was just drawn to it. And it was like an intro deck package that I got from Barnes and Noble one time when I was like 14 or something, you know, and I was like wandering around and it's like, you know, and I didn't really know anything about it. And then I realized, like once I was reading like the little like book that came with it, how, like you were saying, like each card is a certain thing and it has lots of imagery within and means all these different things and all these deeper connections. And at that time in my life, I was like, wow, this is deep. This is beyond like what I can understand right now as a child, you know? So I had put it away up on my bookshelf and kind of left it and just moved on, but also got into meditation and yoga and all sorts of other kind of like intuitive and spiritual kind of aligned things. But then when I was in my first yoga teacher training, I was in India and I was in Rishikesh at this really small village, at this really small school. And right behind the school was a little cafe called Oasis Cafe. And it was kind of our fun little hangout. So like just people around would just kind of come in, float in, sit down, have tea, whatever, chit chat. And there was an Osho Zen tarot deck.
Yeah, I
that
have one of
was,
those.
yeah, me too. And I love it. I love it so much. And that's really where it like really re-sparked my love for tarot, because I was like, oh, these are fun. They were just kind of, yeah, they were just at the restaurant or whatever. So, and we're a bunch of yogis all sitting around from all around the world, So of course we're going to break out the tarot cards and start playing. And some people knew more than I did. Obviously, like I said, I didn't really know much. I just knew what it was, not anything more than that. And so it was amazing, though, how much the cards had to say. Like, even just me not knowing anything, like, it would just speak like leaps and bounds. And I was like, what? Like, how does it know? This is sorcery. And so it wasn't until I then, like, I ended up obviously purchasing a deck before I left of that type. But then I ended up finding that old deck that I had bought at Barnes and Noble 20 some years ago, and have playing with that one. And it's more of a traditional deck. It's not as much as like that Osho Zen one, although that one's amazing, and it still like aligns, I feel, fairly truly with tarot, and like still kind of gets the same ideas across. But yeah, I absolutely love all the messages that like come through. So like
Well, you don't need, and you
like
don't
what
need to, yeah, you don't need to have just like, I have so many decks, and each of the decks kind of like, if I'm in a certain mood, or if I'm feeling a little bit more whimsical or feeling a little bit silly, like not, I feel like, I mean, listen, you can have just one deck, but having having decks to choose from,
okay,
every deck has a message to share, and it kind of like, maybe if you're in a certain mood and a certain deck is calling to you, you're like, oh, this is where my message needs to kind of come from today. I think that that's a lot of fun.
I love that because sometimes I'm like, is this like a real deck though? I get questionable of like, what's like, is it, I think I get too much in that like perfectionist mindset of like, how exactly do you do it? Is it supposed to be exactly like this? Does it align exactly with, pentacles and like swords and all the things? And yeah, you're right. Like, I'm sure no matter what the deck is, like the right thing will come up for you.
Yeah, and it doesn't
But
have to be like a traditional tarot deck has 78 cards. And so there are some decks that don't include the court, or there are some decks that decide that they don't want to call them pentacles, cups, wands, and swords. They want to call them
right.
something else. And I feel as though I like to say there are no rules. I like to say that if it connects with you, if it works with you, then use that deck. But once again, like if you're talking about, like if you were a deck creator and you're like, if I want to make a traditional deck, then yes, your deck should have 22 major arcana cards, 4 suits that are wands, cups, pentacles, and swords, ace through 10, and then the court. And that's what a traditional deck looks like. But once again, like this is art, this is creative. So, I do feel as though the rules can be your own in some ways, and I like that. So the Osho deck is very different, but it's interesting how. And so, do you still use your traditional original deck on occasion, or you're more interested in like a creative type deck?
I was really heavily only into Osho for the Osho deck for a while. I was just like, nope, this is just my jam, But then once I got into the traditional one, I've been trying to learn it a little bit more so I'm more familiar. So I'm not like looking at every single card of like, oh, what does this mean? Like I just want to have a little bit more of an intuitive knowing of what that card like means. So I was like, in order to know that, I feel like study the traditional deck first, and then kind of see it play out in the other like Osho deck, However, the Osho deck, I feel like we do have a very deep bond. Like it knows me, it throws the right, like and then I'm just like, oh my God, I'm literally shaking my head, just like, holy crap, this is crazy. The communication is like so instant that it's undeniable,
Yes.
Yeah, which is why I love it, because it blows my mind. And if I have friends that come over, they are like, hey, can you go get the tarot cards? And I'm like, yes, like what's going on? You don't even have to tell me, I guess just say it out loud. You deal your own deck. I don't even care,
Exactly. Sometimes
'Cause
people think they need
people,
to ask a question, and I'm like, you know what? If it's just a short reading, I'm like, the cards have you. Don't worry. Just like we'll see what comes up. There will be a message. They are very chatty, they are very opinionated, and they will tell you what's up.
right, right. I love that. I love that you have also that same feeling of like, but yeah, just the knowing, just the knowing. So, we had kind of talked about different ways that this kind of fits in with spiritual life, and obviously it's all connected because it's energy around us, speaking to us in ways that we put out for it to speak with us, Um, when I was a kid, I played with the Ouija board a lot. And so me and two of my cousins, girl cousins, and very close in age, all three of us, and we would just play all the time together, and we did all sorts of things. We were playing in the woods and this, that, the other. But somehow, some way, I don't even know how we ended up with a Ouija board to begin with. It's not like any of our parents were happy about it. They were like, "What is going on here? What are they doing? Why is the lights off in that room? What's happening?" But us three would get on that board, and it was insane. Like the messages that would just come through, and how quickly it would go, to the point where we didn't like, our brothers and things would be like, "Oh, you're making it up," and da da da. And I'm like, we don't even know what it's saying. Like, I can't even keep up with the letters to spell what this is, what the answer is, let alone like actually have the forethought to like plant this, like fake thing that we're doing here. Like it was so real. And it is funny, there was definitely predictions that happened back then that came to fruition. Like we had asked like who we were going to marry, and for my one cousin, it spelt out Jeff, and she did end up marrying a man named Jeff.
Wow.
But it was really funny because when we were children and it spelt that out, we laughed because our other cousin, her younger brother's name was Jeff and her dad's name was Jeff. So we were like, "Oh, this is silly. Like, we don't need another Jeff in the family, and it's just bringing up names at this point, whatever. Like, she's not going to marry a Jeff." Lo and behold, 10 years later, she's married and like to a Jeff. And it was just like, do you guys remember that the Ouija board told us that? And so
I think
it's
that's
just like,
hysterical.
yeah, it's wild, people just are so blind, I think, to like the magic that's right in front of us. And I think they're almost scared too. I think there's an underlying fear, an apprehension almost of like not wanting to know the truth or see their unconscious come forth and get put in front of them, because that's scary for some people,
I think
if
that's a
they don't
huge
face
thing.
that on a regular basis,
Yeah.
And so I don't think the apprehension against tarot is like, it's more people not wanting to face their own truth, you know?
Yeah, I've heard from
Um,
people like when they, if I do readings at like a party or at an event, like sometimes there will be people there that may never have like reached out to me to get a one-on-one reading, but while I'm there at the event or the party or whatever, their friends were like, "Oh, you should sit down with her. You should get a reading." And they come, I've seen like the fear in people's eyes saying, "I don't know if I want to know what you have to say." And I'm like, well, very often the
oh,
things that I have to say are things that you intuitively know, but maybe have not quite, acknowledged or, put into any actionable steps forward because maybe you just don't want it to be true, or it feels scary for you, or
mhm,
you may feel like if you open up your mouth and say something that you may be judged or labeled as something that you don't want to be labeled as. So there's a lot of reasons
right.
why we don't want this, but I a lot of times when things come up that are maybe quote unquote unexpected in a reading, underlying they're like, "Well, I kind of had a feeling about that," or "That's interesting that you said that because," and then there's always a story. But
Uh-huh.
I
Right.
do really feel as though it's not that we're not intuitive. I feel as that we don't trust the intuitive feelings that we have because it's scary, because it's very hard. Like, it's not like it's a math equation and you can like be like, "Well, look, there's the answer. Like, I'll show you the work." With
Right.
intuition, it's something that's just inside of you. And you're like, "I just had a feeling that I should say no to that opportunity." Or I just, chose to stay home that day. And I'm so glad I did because, whatever it is. And
Right.
sometimes there's just no explaining it. And that is what makes people feel uncomfortable.
Right. Right. 100%. And I think honestly, a lot of times our intuition almost goes against logic, like against what you would logically something. And so then when you're like that sounds good and logically that makes sense, but there's something that says no, and so I'm going to say no. And you might like get that backlash from others, like, what do you mean? But it was the perfect fit, or like whatever. And it's like, unfortunately, you're right. It's just something says otherwise, and like that's valid enough, and I don't think people realize that that's all you need. Like, it's just, if you're not feeling it, if it doesn't feel aligned, that's enough. That's okay. Logic tells us lots of things.
Yeah, but I think that a lot of times we are trained, like from a very young age, we are taught to not stir the pot, to not go against the grain, to get along, to be, just easy, so to speak, like don't make it difficult kind of thing. So I feel that sometimes what happens is when we start to get these feelings that are not necessarily what the entire crowd wants to do, a lot of people just zip it. They just kind of shut their mouth and sit down because they're like, oh, this is going to be a whole thing if I begin to push up against it. So I think that it takes a lot of courage and just a lot of self-confidence and belief in yourself to raise your hand and be like, I know that everybody said yes, but I'm going to go with no, kind of thing. And everybody's like,
right.
Who does raise their hand?
Right.
Who's making, kind of thing. So it's a very hard thing to do. And that's why I look at intuition as like almost like a muscle. It is not something that is just strong. It is something that you need to work on. Just like yoga, just like holding, a half moon pose or a warrior three. Mm-hmm. I wobble in those positions, and I've been doing yoga for a long time. You need to keep practicing. You need to keep doing the thing. And I think that it's not only a muscular thing. Your intuition is like a muscle. You need, in order to feel courageous, in order to do the bold, confident, against the grain thing, you have to build up a strength for that.
Right. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. And I exactly, like, a lot of people think like, oh, well, once you learn a pose, it's done. You've mastered it. It's over, blah, blah, blah. But like you said, it's like, no, unless you continuously do it all the time, your muscles are getting deteriorating and untraining all the time. So unless you keep that training happening all the time and getting them back into alignment and back into practice, it won't be easy until you're doing that, So yeah, 100% with the intuition thing, it's like, it's a lot easier to begin to trust after you go with that intuition, and then you see it unfold and it worked out in the right way. And then you're like, oh, okay, I can trust you a little bit, and like, and then the next intuitive push, you're like, okay, maybe we can do that. And you do it and it gets you into a better place and a better place, and that's been my experience, at least with intuition. But you're completely right. Like, there's been times in my life where I stopped listening to that intuition because of things where it goes against the grain or whatever. And you kind of stifle that. And then all of a sudden, different things are happening, different disconnections, or things aren't resonating in other areas. And then you ultimately come back to that intuition muscle and you're like, oh yeah, oops, I forgot about you. And then you start picking up those barbells again, and doing those reps and getting in tune with it and trusting yourself again. And like, it is a constant work. It's not a one and done. So I'm really glad that you highlighted that, because I've lived that experience for sure. And it's like, well, I thought I already learned this. And it's like, but you let it go, you let go of the string for a minute. You got to come back and do those reps. For sure.
And it's hard. I'm not saying that it's easy, but I do think that it's worth it.
Yes, 100%. Anytime I've gone against my intuition, I have later felt the pain in one way, shape, or form.
Yes.
And also, every single time I've followed my intuition, it's worked out so much more incredible, more just better than I could have planned in the beginning, you know?
And I,
Um,
and I like to say more aligned with who you want to be or
yes.
the direction that you want to move in. Like, I'm not saying that your intuitive feeling is great for everyone else. Like, sometimes you just feel
Right.
like if everybody's making a right, but you feel the need to make a left, like you're like, ugh, I'm in the wrong lane here. I got to cut across traffic
Yeah.
here. I'm going to make this, it's like
Yeah.
I'm going to make this difficult for a lot of people, but I have to do the thing. So
Right.
it's
Right.
it's not always easy, but I do feel
Hmm.
like if you want to sleep well at night, if you want to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, I did everything possible for you, you have to do those things.
Right. Right. Yeah. So you had talked about tarot and like timing, and I would love to know more about that. Because I think a lot of people, that was one thing that I've just recently kind of come across that people have talked about is like, oh, well, it can kind of almost be a predictor of timing and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I've never heard that like perspective. So I guess when do people use that as like a focus in their reading, and like do you use that focus?
Sure. And I think that first of all, understanding timing is really important. And I feel like that's what sets my work apart a little bit, because I feel as though, especially like when I think of timing, I also think of like numbers and numerology. I do feel like they're all kind of like a big Venn diagram. They're all kind of connected. But
Yes.
I feel like life moves in cycles, and not every moment is a moment for growth. Some moments are
Hmm.
moments for rest. Some moments are moments for integration or preparation. So sometimes people feel stuck, but usually they're not really stuck. They're just in what I call a quiet season. And timing shifts how we see life and progress. So for example, there's a lot of different ways to look at timing. Like once again, as I mentioned, all of the cards have astrological associations. I mean, some of them
Hmm.
are like, the moon in Scorpio, or like some of them are a little bit more specific like that, which is where I get an energy off of it. But for example, the major arcana cards that are the title
Hmm.
cards, like the Emperor, the Empress,
Yeah.
the Death card, all those cards, they are
Hmm.
associated with an astrological sign. So, for example,
Hmm.
the Emperor is the astrological sign of Aries. So, if
Oh, okay.
a tarot card were to show up, like so, say the Emperor, I did a reading, maybe it was like a past, present, future spread, and
Hmm.
say the Emperor showed up in the past position, I would
Hmm.
say, and so the just to for your listeners and who doesn't know, the astrological sign of Aries is approximately March 21st until about April 20th. So we are currently on this date, we are in May right now. So
Hmm.
the Aries season has already passed for this year. And if the Aries card is sitting in the past position, then what I'm going to say is, let me go back to when we were last in Aries. And I might say to you, was this going on for you in late March, early April?
Ah, okay.
So
Hmm.
now imagine same scenario, same spread, past, present, future, and I see the Emperor card. Once again, the Emperor is associated with the astrological sign of Aries, and I see it in the future position. So the next time we are in Aries will be in
Hmm.
March of 2027. So I might say to you, we're looking about 10 months down the road here. I see
Ah,
this
okay.
happening for you. And this is why when I do readings, very often I won't go farther back usually than a year, and I won't go farther forward usually than a year. But a lot of times when cards come up, I have an idea of what energy they are showing me based on the astrological sign that is connected to it. And for like, and not all of the cards have connections like that, but there are other ways that you can find timing in the cards. So for example, I see the aces as seasons, and we have 4 aces in the tarot deck. And wouldn't you know, we have 4 seasons. So each ace gives me an energy of a certain season. So for example, I see the Ace of Wands as the season of summer. Wands are the element of fire. They move quickly. That is summer for me. Summer is my favorite season. It's hot and it moves fast. There's never enough summer as far as I'm concerned. So when the Ace of Wands shows up, one of the ways, and once again, the cards are like onions. They have got many, many layers. So the Ace of Wands is not only the season of summer, but if I'm looking for timing and I see that, I'm like, oh, well, this will be happening for you this summer. Or for example, if it was in the past position, what was going on for you last summer, or kind of thing. So I feel as though I can use cards. And then, I mean, I don't know how specific you want me to get. I don't know how astrologically and involved they are, but this is kind of a few examples of how I use astrology in the cards to give you an idea for timing. Or, for example, I see 3 6s. I'm like, oh, so that could be 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 6s, 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months. Like something may be happening in the 6. So if I see a number repeating, or like, for example, maybe that's like, so 6 is the month of June, or is something happening in the month of June? Like, so I start noticing what are the patterns. So if something comes up, then I'm like, okay, how are the cards are trying to tell me something? How should I be interpreting this? So sometimes what I do is I'm like, okay, this is what I noticed. And then what I do is I begin a conversation with the person I'm doing a reading for. This is what I'm seeing. How does this relate to you? Does this, what are you noticing? What is popping up for you? Like, what's the light bulb that's coming up in your head? Like, how might you interpret this, and how might this fit into your life? I mean, once again, I can't say that I'm 1000% correct with every reading, but what I notice is patterns. So for example, if I see the Emperor card, which is the astrological sign of Aries, which starts in March. March is the 3rd month, and I see a bunch of 3s. I'm like, that's interesting. We have Aries, we have all these 3s. What was happening for you in March, kind of thing. So I just feel like what I do is and it's all instinctual. I just follow like patterns, and I'm always looking to see, are there colors that are showing up again and again? Are there certain symbols that are showing up again and again? Are there certain astrological signs that are showing up again and again? And sometimes these signs can be people in our lives. They can be timing. So it really depends. But, there's a lot of different ways that you can read the cards using the numbers, using, all the pieces of the cards. I'm not sure if that answered your question. I feel like I went a little all over the place with that answer.
No, I absolutely loved it. You explained it beautifully. I loved it. I love it. And yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Like bringing it into with the astrological signs, and like then that leads it into a very simple sync into the calendar, and then into like our everyday. And then, to then bring numerology. I never really thought about numerology and tarot even being related. So the fact that you're like bringing that so much to my forefront of my mind, I'm like, oh, I just feel like like light bulbs, tons of light bulb moments going on over here.
They're so
um,
related. They're so related. I feel as though like tarot and numerology, like it's all like peanut butter and jelly. It's all, I mean, like peanut butter is great alone, jelly is great alone, but when you combine the two, you're like, wow, now this is something, you
right.
know?
Right, right, exactly. Like instead of using them as two totally different modalities, because a lot of times I feel like they're almost all competing, you know? Like astrology's like, no, but I'm right, and tarot's like, but I can do it, and numerology's like, you guys don't understand what you're missing over here, and it's just like, you guys, just like, yeah, if yeah, I love like the unity of it all. Of oh, it's actually just literally all the same sciences, different tools, but all based around the same methodology, basically, more or
Yeah,
less.
and that is how
Um,
I'm a big mixer of tools. Like I really like I come in and I'm also a certified life coach. So I feel as though I bring powerful questions and I bring
mhm,
values and I bring life purpose and I bring a few other things into it. But what I'm trying to do is move the reading forward. So how do I move the reading forward? I'm like, oh, well, here's a card giving me a message. Oh, look, there's a number repeating that message. Oh, and there's my friend Astrology sticking its little hand up saying, here I am too. It's like, okay, repeat, repeat, repeat. And now I'm like, huh. Then out comes my question. I'm seeing this in three different ways. How is that showing up for you? What are you
mhm.
noticing in your life? And how are you blocking that? Or how is that serving you in a way that can move you forward? And they're like, oh, like you were saying, wait a minute, I didn't even know that I had that tool. It was like, oh, I used that tool 6 months ago and I left it out in the rain in the yard. And now I'm telling you,
Right.
that's the tool you're missing. You're like, oh, let me go out and get it kind of thing. It's like I'm pointing you in the direction that you need to go in. And that is the wonderful thing. That is the benefit of using all of these together. And I understand one at a time, one thing at a time. I'm not saying, go all in
Mhm.
and start learning all the things. I studied tarot alone for a very long time, like over 8 years. I studied for a very long time before I even started doing readings, before I even started, thinking that there was something else outside of that. But once I did find that, it really, like light bulbs, like you said, going off all over the place.
Yeah, yeah. And I love to come to my deck when I need, yeah, that little bit of guidance, that little bit of extra nudge of like, it's more or less validating what you already know. You know, it's validating your own intuitive thought, and then you see it play out, and you're like, okay, thank you. Thank you for saying that. And or like, oh yeah, I had the feeling that that's what it was, and that's what it was. Like, here's the tower card or whatever. But it's just so validating. So, I guess like when people like, what do you see most um when people like come to you like with things in general?
Well, I feel as though people come to me a lot for relationships. They want to know,
Mm,
you know,
I feel like
is
that's
this the
probably a
person
huge
for
one.
them?
Yeah.
When will they meet the person for them? The person that they are now broken up with, will they get back together again? And I really, I am not a huge fan of predictive astrology. Like I'm like I
Hmm.
feel, and I really
Right.
am not a fan also of health readings. Like if people want to find out about their health or somebody else's health within like their lives, I always say I am not a doctor and I do not give medical advice. That is, that's, I would not go to, it's like I wouldn't go to
Right.
the gardener if I needed to get my tooth work done. I feel like, you have to go to the right person to get the right
Right.
answers. And I'm certainly not trained in that. And I don't even want to start throwing spaghetti at the wall. I mean, I see things, but I would
Right.
never predict health. But people come to you often wanting, as you mentioned, validation, like, should I take this job? Or am I, and it's funny, and what your question prompted in me is what I learned from one of my original tarot teachers a very long time ago. People will come to you with a million questions about their job, their relationship, should they move, a friendship, everything. And the bottom line is they're only really is one question. And that question is, am I going to be okay? Because every question really leads back to that. So,
Right.
which is why I usually start my reading saying, what do we need to know right now? And the bottom line is, yes, you are going to be okay because you are ultimately going to land on your feet because there's no other option. You've always taken care of yourself. And why should we change those patterns now? And what can we find out right now from the cards that can help you maybe see things with a different perspective or approach it in a way that's pivoted, instead of approaching it from fear, approaching it more from like a place of compassion and love and curiosity. And how can I be able to dance in the moment and not feel like I'm standing in quicksand instead? So I feel as though these are the questions that I really prefer. They're open-ended. They're coming in with an open mind, with wide eyes, and they're willing to listen instead of, can we pull some more cards? Like, I feel like, when people say, like, if they don't get the answer that they want, well, can you pull a couple more cards? I'm like, should we just pull the whole deck until the answer, until we get the good card that you're waiting for? I feel like, so, and there's, no shade to anybody. Of course, I want to give good news. And, but I do feel as though sometimes we want to be like that ostrich that hides our head in the sand. And
100%.
What I have learned very much from the tarot, and it seems like you have too, Kelsey, is that the tarot and the Ouija board will not allow that. They will not let you bury your head in the sand. They want you to see what's going on so you can move it forward.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so funny. I laugh because I had a moment like that a couple summers ago with a friend, and we were doing readings for ourselves, but like kind of doing them in front of each other or whatever, and kind of talking through it. And she had done hers, and we had, already digested it, and it was like, okay, that makes sense, whatever. So we go to do mine, and I had a specific question, and and I lay things out, and like this one card laid down, and I was like, no, that's not it. That is not it. That is not the one that's supposed to be in that position. Nope. Mistake. Literally put everything back, shuffle. I was like, that is ridiculous. Absolutely not. Go to replace that card. The same card came up, and I almost I lost my mind. My friend literally screamed. She's like, ah!
And I've heard that story before, and I've been in that story before. Like, I've had people say, like, I don't agree with this whole spread. Like, I'll pull out, like, 5, 6, whatever cards, and they're like, nope. Yeah. I don't like the story. No. I don't like the way this is going. We need to start again. And I'm like, all right, fine. You are shuffling, you are picking, I'm not planting anything anywhere. And once again, like, very often a similar message will come up.
Very similar cards come across anyway. And it's like, oh, looks like that's the book that we're writing right now. Yes. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how did that? So back to your story. How did that card land? So did it play out as a story? And maybe the story was different than you thought it was.
And it is, and honestly, it's still kind of playing out, quite frankly. Okay. But it's very interesting the way that I was just like in very denial. I was just like, nope, that's not the thing, and it's like, actually consistently it is the thing, and so sometimes when it's not very often that I come across resistance in my life. Most things I'm like, yep, that's good, or that's right, or that's what we're planning for, or whatever. So when I do come against resistance, I'm like, okay, I start to use my tools or whatever, and then when it doesn't change or when it continues, then I'm like, okay, time to settle in, and what is this message? What is this telling me? So I have found, tarot to be really helpful in all of those ways of really bringing up that true message that you don't want to acknowledge. Like you were saying, a lot of the times it's things that people don't want to see, and it's like, but it's there, and it's the truth, and you need to process it. And like you said, it really hits home of just like, people just want to know that they're going to be okay.
And oh, he's totally fine. I have one too. I have a pupperoonie, and I'm actually very lucky he hasn't barked his head off either. But just yeah, just the fact that it'll just show you what you need, regardless of what you want to acknowledge. You know, it's just ready to show you what's there, and I just I love that. So, but with numerology, I've kind of just started diving into that. I know, like I said, I've kind of done some tarot work and working with just yeah the intuition, and I dive a lot into astrology too. I've been a lifelong astrology lover. Um, but um, numerology, I once I started looking into it, I was like, oh, this has a lot of fun synchronicities, you know. And I've just noticed like different number synchronicities throughout my life, um, and learning about it. And like one that I've been mulling over is like the 11. The number 11 is like a master number, spiritual
Yeah.
number,
Is that
spiritual
coming up in
teacher
your,
type thing.
is that a personal number for you?
Yeah. So I'm an Aquarius. I'm born on February 11th. So I'm an 11, and then I'm my grandpa on my dad's side. He's June 11th. I never met him. He passed away before I was born, but he was a Lutheran pastor for like the second half of his life, and was like a very devoted spiritual teacher, in his own way, you know. Um, and then my cousin on my father's side, so I'm the very youngest of the grandchildren on that side, and he's the very oldest, my um, oldest cousin, and he's also born on February 11th. And
Wow.
so
Lots
like
of
the
11s.
first, yeah, like the first grandchild and then the last grandchild were both February 11th. He's male, I'm female. Oh, and my grandfather, before he was a pastor, he went into World War II and like fought overseas, and then came home and became a pastor. So like very polar opposites, you know, of his story. But my oldest cousin, he ended up being in the army and things most of his life, and is now in like law enforcement. Um, and myself, I teach like yoga and meditation and spirituality and things. And I feel like he and I are like living these odd, like highest timelines of like our grandfather in certain ways, with like him of the male aspect of like protection and things, and like me of the female aspect of like more like the spiritual nurturing side of things. And so I've just like been considering just where the 11s all fall and things like that. And like my oldest son is born on the 11th of December, and just all these other things. But so it's sparked. But I guess like where do you use numerology in your life, or like where do you use it for your clients, and what do you see it like most helpful for?
Wow. Well, there's a lot of different ways that you can use numerology. And so I use one of the things that I use it for mostly, like I look at like your personal year cycles. So every year, we move through what we call like a new personal year. So your personal year is calculated from like your birth date. So like if you're a 211,
Right.
and so if I was looking for this year, like for what your personal year number is, so I would add 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 6. So I'm adding 2 and 11, which is your day and month, to the year. So
You don't use birth year to figure out
that is
personal
your
year.
life path. Your life
Okay.
path is your birth year. So I look at both. So your
Right.
life path is about your your lessons that you're here to learn, your talents, your skills.
I'm familiar with that. So I'm a life path 8, but that's all I know.
Okay. Do you know about life path 8?
But no, not really. But I enough to calculate my number.
Well, I mean, I can give you some insight on a life path 8, but it's actually really interesting to know. So you can take your life path number, which for those that are listening, what you do is you take your birth month. So we gave the example of February 11th. So you would add 2 and 1 and 1, so the 211, and then you would add whatever year of your birth is. So if it was the year 1999, you add a 1 and a 9 and a 9 and a 9, whatever. You add the numbers up together. Yeah. And what we are essentially looking for is a single digit, or if you have, as you mentioned, one of those double numbers, the master numbers, either an 11, a 22, or a 33. So what we are looking to do, so you said that your numbers added up to an 8. So like, for example, if you add your numbers up and it gets to the number 23, that is not an 11, 22, or 33. So what we do is we add the 2 and the 3 together and we have the number 5. So your life path 5. So for a life path 8, I call the life path 8 the powerhouse. And
ooh, that's fun.
so you are ambitious. You are very much about achievement. You are somebody that's in charge. So I don't know if in your family you are someone that people can reliably count on you to take charge. It deals with success, leadership, and using your power wisely. So I feel as though 8s are always looking to expand. They're always looking to cast a wider net. They are very don't count out an 8. An 8 will figure out a way to get to the finish line for sure.
Nice.
Now that's who you are in your life. So so did you say you're a February 11th birthday?
Yes. Yep.
So now what we're going to do, we're going to find out your personal year. So is it okay that I tell your podcast audience? Okay. So what we're going to do is we're
totally fine.
2 and 1 and 1, that's 4. And 2 is 6, 0. 6 is 12. And then 2 more is 14. So 14 is not one of our masters. So we're going to break it down again and we're going to add 1 and 4 together and we're going to get you the number 5. So you are a life path 8, very ambitious, very driven, very, authoritative and all that stuff. And you are in a personal year 5. And a personal year 5, 5 is what I call the adventurer. And so this is a year of change. This is a year of freedom. This is a year of versatility, curiosity. And this is a year where you should embrace movement. There's going to be new experiences. You're going to be breaking out of your routine. So this is a great time to shake off that old skin and step into maybe like Kelsey 2.0, maybe like the next version of you. So, and so what I'm doing now is I'm combining your life path number, which is very ambitious and driven, with change. So I feel as though I don't really think you're going to hold back. I feel as though the energy of this year is you're like, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to see what comes and I'm not going to run and hide. I'm going to face whatever changes are coming with curiosity, with open arms, with the mindset of I'm open to new experiences, because what's happening right now is that the way that you've been doing things isn't really working for you in the way that it used to, and that you are actually seeking a new way of living your life in a more aligned mindset than what maybe you have been for maybe the past 6 months or so, because we're and so last year you were in a different energy. You were always a life path 8, but you were not in a personal year 5 last year. So it's interesting just to see kind of what the new year energy brings you, because people that are in a 7 year are kind of in a very introspective non-movement year. People that are in a 5 year like you are in a very active year. So for example,
I would have told me that in January, and I could have foreseen, because it is insane how true that is and how many changes have happened in my life, and most of them are just totally out of my control. You know, a lot of it is just like environmental even, and just wild, but all working toward a like more alignment, you know, further alignment. And I'm seeing that as I'm going through the changes. But when you were like, oh, a 5 year, that's all change. I'm like, oh my God, I wish I would have had that heads up. So
Well,
like, yeah,
you still have plenty of time this year.
exactly.
And
No,
so now my
totally. It's
question
amazing.
is, like,
It just
so
checks out.
now that you know this
It's
information,
perfect.
how can you use it?
Right, right.
So
And
this is
I
how I use
think,
numerology.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's insanely powerful lens to like look at things through. And like you just said, like if like 7 is kind of like more of a mellow number for like a personal year, I feel like I've lived years where it is more mellow, and because because of just my nature, I'm always like, but something's wrong then, because I'm not doing something, I'm not accomplishing something, this seems too slow. And it's like, no, those were just years that were meant to be slow, you know,
Right,
that were
which is
meant to
why
be a little bit.
you need to know your
Mm-hmm.
season, because you're always an 8. You're
Right.
still an 8, and an 8 wants to do. But
Mm-hmm.
maybe this year is the time to perfect the plan. And next year is
Mm-hmm.
the year to put it into motion. So
Mm-hmm.
knowing your season is really helpful. So you don't wind
Yeah.
up, just putting a whole lot of effort in and having it all belly flop, or have things moving really quickly, and you're like, well, wait a minute, I wasn't ready for the, kind of like, wait a minute, I need a pack bag, and I don't even know where my suitcase is, kind of thing. It's like you're kind of like
Right.
caught off guard. So if you know what's
Mm-hmm.
coming, it can be super helpful and get you in the right mindset so you can be successful.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's amazing. I don't know why more people aren't using that.
They don't
Seriously.
know. They don't know.
Truly,
That's why
they don't know. It's amazing. That is wild. So you said you're based in New York?
I'm
Are you
based
in like
in New York.
York?
Yeah, in New York City. But I do, you know what? I
Mm-hmm.
work with, I'm on Zoom a lot. I work with clients that are all
Mm-hmm.
over the world, and I love doing one-on-one sessions with them. Like sometimes I do like a little combo session, but if people just want to know their numerology, or they just want a palm reading, or they just like, if they want one thing, we can do one thing. But if you want to do like a general reading, I pull in all my tools, and I say what I see, and it's really helpful. Like I have clients that come to me every year, like it's like something that they do for their birthday, or they come, in the new year, so they can hear what's going on. Like it's funny, I had a client, her birthday is in July, and so usually in July we have a session, and she called me back in like April, and she said to me, I want you to know, she said, I'm going through a crisis right now. And she said, I didn't know what to do. And she said, so what I did is I pulled up the recording of our session from July. She said, you are so wise. She said, I felt as though you were speaking directly to me today. She said, so many things that I've been freaking out about, you've talked me down off the ledge. And I was like, what did I say? Kind of thing. So,
Right.
But she said to me, it's crazy how you knew then. And how I knew, I looked at her numbers. I gave her some information. I looked at her cards for the year. I looked at the energy that was happening around her and said, here's how you prepare. And, once again, I couldn't maybe, declare exactly the crisis that she was going through, but the fact that she has information now that she can use, that is what makes me sing. That's what lights me up beyond anything. It's like, I want to really be of service to people. I want to help them so they can know who they are, so they can move forward with confidence and be steady and courageous as they move through the world.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I've loved this conversation so much. I feel like we could go on forever and ever. But just to, I guess, like a final, like a wrap up almost question, because as you were talking about it, kind of like sparked it for me. What would you say is the difference between like intuition and fear and overthinking? Because I'm sure that's something that people come to you with, probably all three of those floating around when they do. So what do you tell people to like how do they focus in and know that which voice is the right one?
Right. And well, the first thing that I will say is this is definitely something that I've heard a lot of times. People don't know. But how I would distinguish the difference is intuition is quiet. And it's simple. It's just like a feeling of, I can't really say how I know, but I know. Like I know this to be true. It feels clear. It feels neutral. It's just like a knowing.
Yes.
Whereas fear is kind of like an alarm bell. It repeats itself. It imagines the worst. It's loud. It's convincing. It's actually exhausting. So, and then kind of like on its own little planet is the idea of overthinking. And overthinking often means that you don't yet fully trust yourself. And as self-trust grows, your thoughts become quieter. So I would say in order to get out of the overthinking, or what I call analysis paralysis, because you can seriously get paralyzed in the overthinking, I would suggest that you pause and listen, because this will change everything. What we are looking to do is tune into our bodies. And if you I sometimes give this example to clients if they don't know, like I'm like, how do you know if you should say yes or no to something, for example? And I said, well, your body gives you, your body tells you if you're paying attention. And they're like, well, what does that mean? And I'm like, well, I'm going to tell you about the full body yes. So Kelsey, tell me something that you love so much that it's always a yes for you. Like that could be travel, that could be going to the beach, that could be going on a Ferris wheel, or going to hear your favorite band. Like what makes you smile? What makes you happy? What is always a yes for you?
Going to the beach is always a yes. You know, anything outdoors is always a yes.
Okay.
I do love live music. Anything like that would, if it's my kind of vibe, then yes. You know, I
Okay.
think, yeah.
All right, so for our intents and purposes, we'll go with the beach and outdoors right now. So I want
Perfect.
you to describe to me, how does it feel for you when you're like walking on the beach, or when you're out in nature? Like what is that like in your body? How does that feel?
Freedom, calm, open, expansive, quiet. I think those are probably the main ones, like lightness, almost like just being in the present moment, you know, like all of your needs are met, kind of that ease state of just everything is perfectly as it should be, you know.
Okay, so I want you to imagine that this feeling, the beach and the outdoors, this everything is aligned as it should be, you feel peaceful, calm, all those things. That is your feeling of your full body yes. So the beach and the outdoors, that is yes to you. And anything that is not that may feel like the opposite of that. So if I were to say to you, Kelsey, do you want to go for a walk on the beach? Like, do you want to just go and like, you know, just like smell the fresh air and just like, we're not in any rush. Just like, let's just go. Like you're smiling. I can see it in your eyes. Like you're lit up. Okay. Now I'm going to give you a different scenario. Your neighbor comes knocking on your door and says, Kelsey, I have this big, heavy bag of garbage in my apartment, my house. It's just like, it's stinky and it's so heavy. I can't even move it. Will you come? Will you just like drag it down the hall with me? Will you get it out to the curb with me? Will you help me?
Yeah.
Okay. How does that feel compared to the beach and the outdoors?
Yeah, that feels very like restrictive,
Very different.
very like closed. Yeah, very dark, you know.
Like,
Yeah,
I'd rather
very
not.
different.
But at the same time, we have these conversations in our head like, oh, somebody needs my help. Oh, is this going to make me look like a bad person? Is this going to make me look like a bad neighbor? Like we start all of a sudden having like, I kind of don't want to do this. However, I don't know how to say no because this person is literally looking at me in my eyes and expecting and hoping that I will say yes. So this is what happens. Sometimes we know that something that we are being asked to do isn't a yes. We know what yes feels like. However, when we are asked and kind of put into an uncomfortable situation, we sometimes don't say no because no is very hard. So, and sometimes people are like, well, I don't know how. Like and I'm like, well, now you know what yes feels like. So when someone asks you to do something, because honestly, people, we're all so busy these days, and giving your time away, like, how does that serve you? So I always feel like if you could be aware of what a no feels like, and then you could maybe save that time or save that energy or that like feeling of frustration or irritation that you had to give yourself away for that, like you could save that. Like, what would be possible then? So I invite you to use that. And I know that some people have a hard time saying no. So sometimes what I say, like if people are asking you to do something and it feels like a no, then you can say to them, listen, would you be okay with me checking my calendar? Or like, would you be okay with me getting back to you on that? Like, I just have to check a few things. And then if you want, you can text them no. Like, I know that saying no is hard, but this saying no is similar to what I was saying in the beginning of our conversation about intuition. It's like a muscle. And we are all, myself included, very weak in the actual practice of saying no. It's a hard thing. But the more we do it, it's like saying no to them is saying yes to you. So let's pick up the weight. Let's gain some muscle here, and let's use that practice to bring ourselves back so we don't have to make decisions from a place of fear or overthinking. We can make decisions from a place of our intuition, from a place of quietly knowing in a very clear and neutral way that this is right.
Right. And it can be like the simplest things too, like when you were saying that, like, because a lot of the times we can just want to please people, or help them out, even though it does feel like a no for us. And it's like, but I've been in situations where then I do the thing or I go out, whatever, against that, even though I didn't want to. And then you're right. Like immediately, like there's frustration, there's anger. It's not the thing that you wanted to be at. And it's just like, just all the things, kind of fall apart. And it's like, oh, this is why we listen to ourselves, this is why we listen to that yes or that no or whatever it is, And I've even caught myself with my kids, it's like sometimes, especially during the summer when we have more free time and stuff, they'll be like, can we go to the beach or can we go to the park like right now, just on a whim, and sometimes that's an easy yes. Sometimes it's like, yeah, no problem. Like, that's great. That works out. And we all go. We all have a fun time. Sometimes when they ask me that, I'm working from home and I'm like, no, like I need to do some things. I need to get some stuff done before we're just running gallivanting around, But maybe they start bickering with each other or get even more wild. And they're like, can we just go do the thing? And I'm like, fine, let's go. But then again, the same thing will happen. We'll go to the park and then it's like, this happens and that happens, whatever. I'm like, yep, this is why we shouldn't have left home. I could have just actually put you all with a book and an activity and you guys could have done your things. I could have got my stuff done. When we were moving into dinner, I would feel much better about this day. But now I let you guys derail me because you're children and you just want to have fun. It's nothing that they're not being malicious in any way. But it's just as simple as listening to your own inner knowing, and trusting that regardless of what everyone else wants. And knowing that that's going to be okay. Like, you might rock the boat, but like, it's not going to be rocky forever. The waters will calm and everyone will be fine, no matter what it is. Because like you said before, like it's always been that way. So far, you've made it through 100% of your days thus far in your life, you're here.
And just I think, yeah. And that's what it all comes down to. So, yeah, like, and that's what it's all like, believing that you can do the thing and it will still be okay.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what it is.
Well, That's amazing. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for being here today and for being on the podcast. Um, where can people find you if they are wanting to do a reading or really anything that you had to, like tarot,
Oh, yeah.
numerology, all the fun stuff?
Thank you. Yeah, well, they can absolutely find me on my website. It's my name, Dina Berrin, and I have a YouTube
Okay.
channel where I have tons of videos about tarot cards, explaining them. So if you're confused about a
Ooh,
card, I have a lot of videos on YouTube. It's my name with some numbers after it, but if you put my name in, you'll find it. And the same thing,
awesome.
I'm on IG, and I wrote a book. I wrote a book about all of this. It's called The Way
Okay.
Within, igniting your
Hmm.
intuition with sacred tools. And the tools that I'm talking
Hmm.
about are tarot, numerology, and I have my own system that are charms that are like symbols, and they're a very cool way to work. And
Ooh.
it introduces them, it tells their story, it asks you questions. I have all these PDFs that I created, and I have like a whole free like a goodies website where you can just click the QR code and you can get all my goodies for free with the book. It's great. And my book is on Amazon. And if you
Nice.
look at my name,
Amazing.
I'm there. So there you go.
Yay, perfect. Yeah, I will get a link too, and I'll link it in the show notes here. So if you
Thank
want to
you.
find the book, yeah, click it here. And I can also link your website and stuff so that people can find you. So that's amazing. So I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so great talking to you today. I appreciate you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you. And take care. We'll talk soon. All right. Bye.
Okay, wasn't that so fun? Oh my goodness, my mind was seriously blown after that entire conversation. I was just like, what? What just happened? This was so fun, so amazing. So I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. And next week I will be back on the pod. It was going to be me fully this week, but it just was not working out that way. So I will see you next week. And yes, some fun things on my website. If you're looking for any sort of support, I do have a free guide on there. So if you go to holistichathyoga.com and go to the menu and then free guide. And in that, once you click the free guide page, it'll bring you to the 7-day grounding reset. And essentially, this is just 7 days in a row of a small email from me where it's about, with like usually a little video or a little attachment, a very tiny practice for you to do. Um, and I built this because I just see that it's really needed in the world. I mean, included for myself, but if I didn't have these grounding practices, I don't know what I would be doing with my life. And so it is part of my dharma and part of my duty to share these with others for free at no cost. Just go to my website, holistichathyoga.com, go to free guide, and yeah, get yours coming to you. And I hope you really enjoy that. Like I said, they're very, very small bite-sized things. So not adding another to-do to your day by any means, just very small, simple practices that you can incorporate into your days to help you feel more grounded every single day. So with that, thank you so much, my friends. I will talk to you later and I'll see you next week. Bye. Om Loka Samista Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om